And good to see you. For those who pop their camera on, you can do so at any point, but happy for you not to have it on as well if you prefer. All right, 6 minutes past. We shall get started then. As mentioned, it's the Meet the Judges session, and it's a chance to chat with Graham and myself about the judging process for you to best formulate your nominations for this year's award ceremony. I'll introduce myself. If you don't know me, Jason Miles Campbell. I'm head of JISC Scotland and JISC Northern Ireland. I've been judging the CDN Award since 2016 and had the privilege of doing so. And one of the things we can reflect on is how we get more people to know about all the wonderful things that go on within Scottish further education, Scottish colleges indeed. And again, I was very lucky just a week ago to be part of the Herald Higher Education Awards, and very much enjoyed coming together to celebrate that. And indeed, I'm pleased to say that colleges did very well at the Higher Education Awards as well. As you know, the awards are they're not simply about having a nice night, but they're also about playing a part in quality enhancement, more importantly, making the exceptional the norm in future, and getting ideas from that. The chance to show off what we do well. But from a judging point of view, it comes down to fine margins often, because there's an awful lot of good stuff that goes on in Scottish colleges. So we have that challenge. So this is a little bit about how you make our life easier, indeed, in flagging up the stuff that allows us to judge to the best that we can. I'll let Graham introduce himself. Graham, over to you.
Thank you. Hi folks, I'm Graham Hendry. I am Senior Partnership and Delivery Manager for Foundation and Graduate Apprenticeships with Skills Development Scotland. And I think I am going to year 4. You start to lose track of time, especially with the last couple of years. I think I'm going to year 4 of being a judge. In particular, the judgment, the category that I've been most interested in over the last few years is Employer Connections Awards. And that's the one that probably my comments will be mostly based about. There's lots of good things coming in, and we can see in a lot of the work with the colleges, a lot of really strong employer connections. But probably just trying to help to see how do you stand out from the crowd in terms of that, because I say there's so many good nominations coming in. What is it that makes those move to the shortlist is probably something I'm thinking about sharing with yourselves in terms of this call.
Well, Graham, with that, without further ado, I'll let you go on and say a little bit about the comments that you'd make.
So in terms of the Employer Connection Awards in particular, probably over the last 3 years of judging the show, this year, I've probably judged most categories at some stage because things move about, but the one I've consistently been involved in is that one. And what we see each year is a lot of quite good specific projects where a piece of work's been undertaken with an employer and a college for a specific purpose. But the ones that tend to stand out are those that are connected in wider into the wider strategic alignment. So if you're talking about those where you can show a clear alignment to a strategic goal of the college or a strategic goal from government, such as Young Persons Guarantee, developing young workforce, or you can see the interconnections into other departments. So you bring in a construction employer, just picking as an example, because that's when it often comes. But if it's a big company, what are they doing throughout the other parts of the business, the college, and how is it connecting in through to them? They're the ones that tend to stand out, and also the ones with longevity, where you can see that there's going to be a longer term impact as opposed to a one-off. Another thing that stands out is what the outcomes are. And that can be, this is something we talked about actually in the last nomination, last meeting we had. It's a judgment to be made about when you put a nomination in. Sometimes if you're in the middle of doing something, you haven't seen the impact of it, but you're really in the middle of it, you can see some really good things going, but that impact is really important. So if you've brought employers in, is it creating job opportunities, or is it supporting other outcomes that will help the learners in the college to benefit and move on to the next destination? And that does make a difference in terms of being able to see those aspects of it. So they're the key ones I just wanted to pull out, and they're what can quite often be that micro difference between the lots of good nominations we see and the ones that move to the next stage. I shall pause there, Jason, but happy to take questions, or we can pick up later in the conversation.
Thank you very much. I'll reiterate some of those. And going back in general across the criteria, I will reiterate some of those and make a few other reflections as well. First of all, I'll start with that last one that you made there. These are annual awards, and obviously we have to deal with activity or impact that took place in 21-22. And sometimes that's got its challenges. If you've got a project that's been running successfully for 15 years, then we want to know the answer to the question of why this year? What is it about 21-22 that is the right point for us giving you an award? Why couldn't you come back next year, or why didn't you submit last year, I think is the thing that sets it out. Of course, we always have the challenge, and you have the challenge indeed, of activity takes place at some time and the impact follows. And so what happens if that's across a number of years? We're okay about stuff that's happened beforehand where the impact's happening this year, but please be clear as to what is happening in 21-22 that means that the project activity or whatever it is eligible for an award this year. Please spell it out to us. That makes life easier. Secondly, relevance. If you can spell out what the problem is that's being solved or the opportunity that's being taken, then that is good for us. Obviously, things that are good, things that are exceptional are so because they're solving a problem, they're doing something good. If you can tell us how that's relevant, and again, going to Graham's point, if you can link that in with national initiatives and strategies, so much the better, or sectoral strategies even. So that's about the year, about the relevance. The third point in general I would make is, again, spell out its uniqueness. Why your entry versus what else is going on in the Scottish sector or elsewhere. So spell out what is innovative, what is unique, what is exceptional. So it could be something that's being done elsewhere, but you're doing it better. By all means, or you're doing it a different way. But often we're left deciding upon nominations which don't stand out. It's difficult to know why it's not the business as usual that's taking place elsewhere. I'll give an example between friends as to the higher education awards, where a university put in a nomination for pivoting online during the pandemic. We all did. That's and there wasn't enough to say why there was something specific about that institution's move to online in the circumstances. I had an interesting one actually judging many years ago, where a college claimed to be the first ever to have consulted with local industry, which I thought was very that's optimistic to claim that, and was met with some scepticism. Impact, of course, again, and we know that there is a difficulty in as I say, activity, especially that's happening now, knowing what the impact is in the future. But obviously, we want some evidence as to the difference that is being made. That helps us. We're all here for a purpose, and so if you can spell that out as best as possible, keep it concise is the part. Again, keep it spelled out clearly as to why. The project activity or whatever is a good thing, and a small and fairly precise thing is be careful about using or try to use absolute figures. There's a number of entries I can think of that were claiming 100% increase in something. Is that an increase from 2 to 4? I've had 100% increase in the number of coffees I've had today. That in itself is great, but you know how statistics can be abused. Don't be afraid of small numbers. If your project has made a utterly positive, transformative difference to 4 or 5 students, say with supported learning needs, then that can win an award over another entry that's done a little bit of good for 1,000 people as well. But we need to know the scale of what's going on. So yeah, please spell that out. Transferability is a big part of it as well. What we're looking for in the awards is the ability to build on the good and the great and the exceptional. So if you can, if the project itself or you and your nomination can see what difference it can be made outside the particular project and what's being done to champion that, then so much the better. And I would say that entries must be tailored to an individual category. Graham and I have both seen cut and pastes where the blunderbuss approach of taking a nomination and sticking it in for 4 different categories. That's fine. There may be different aspects to it, but please do tailor the nominations to it, because it's unlikely that one version of it will meet the criteria across a number of different categories. And finally, it's always good to see, and we appreciate this, the learning that comes out of the project. And learning, of course, can be things that have not gone to plan, that haven't quite worked out as well. That's valuable in itself. And so, yeah, it doesn't all have to be gold and polished. That's where we know what reality looks like. Well, hopefully those things are helpful in general. And we sponsor the Digital Learning Award, and so I'll just reflect pretty much on how those things apply in the Markie Digital Learning Award. So going by the criteria there, then they are specified that it's creative digital approaches in curriculum design, content or delivery, and the stress there is on creative. So we know that there are digital approaches that they have been used well by the sector, but how are we taking that further? What is the exceptional? What should we be doing next year, indeed, that is currently cutting edge or moving things forward? Secondly, scope for ideas to be adapted or transferred to other curriculum areas. Looking for it as well. So quite often some of the great things that happen are bottom up, and it's they start on the ground, and the question is, how can they go further and improve other areas, and how can they be adopted as strategy rather than just a one-off good thing? A third part is about sustainability and longevity. Quite a lot of the projects that we see have been started by a person, a champion, someone who's had a good idea. What happens if that person leaves? What happens if the funding, if there's funding involved, goes? Is this something where there's a plan to keep it going? Because if it's doing good, then we don't want to lose that. Collaboration with other departments and our external partners is part of it as well. We, whilst well, a conference that JISC had, we decided to stop calling things silos and calling them cylinders of excellence. Then nonetheless, then things work best when they work together. And so if there are links out to the rest of the college or beyond the college, then details of those collaborations internally or with external partners are useful. But finally, and I'll say in the Digital Learning Award, it's quite often about what is unique about the particular piece of work, what it stands out and why. And if concentrating on that is useful to help us separate out the entries. We know that the chances of something rising up, which is so mind-blowing, nobody's ever thought of it before, is unlikely. That is, we tend to evolve, and there are some things which approach revolution, but still, we're talking about in the reality of the Scottish college sector at the moment. So don't go over the top in terms of uniqueness, but still, we do have to try and separate out your entry from others. So identify what you think about it, but I think about your entry that sets it apart. Well, I hope that's been useful. Certainly feel free to open your mics, come back with any comments or reflections or questions indeed. Anyone?
Hi, it's Henrietta here. I'm from Dumfries and Galloway College. We're a fairly small rural college. How would you, because obviously we don't have a plethora of employers around, we don't have big industry here, you know, we're very rural, very spread out. How could we really stand out in an award? I mean, I've got colleague of the year. I'm going to be applying for that. But, you know, things like interacting with industry. I mean, ours is quite small scale, and we won't be able to stand out against the big boys, if you like. So I don't know, how could we kind of increase our award winning?
Graham, would you like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, I know I made to myself for something else to cover. To some extent, the size of the college shouldn't matter so much in this one, because we recognise, and you see it, the big city-based colleges have got much different access to certain employers than others do. But what you're really looking at, and I've seen shortlisted, you know, I think there was one with a Guyland Butte College shortlisted a couple of years ago, where it was only a small number of people involved, but it was the impact, and it was the legacy of it, and it was the fact that you could see that there was going to be, for coming years, that there'd been an impact already and helped somebody get a job, but for the coming years, there would be a future impact and a future sustainability to it, which would last in that space rather than a one-off thing that happened. It was great, it was with big employers, and then it was gone. So for me, it's really round about, can you show how you've made the connections with those employers that Dumfries and Galloway are working with, where it maybe crosses over different departments, or there's an impact for the learners, and you can see how that's going to be sustained and developed and become even better into the future. It's already an impact with future potential would certainly be something to stand out. Hopefully that helps you.
Thank you. And I will say as well that the judging guidelines allow us to take into account, and we do take into account, proportionate size and scale within this. And so if you look at it in terms of the challenges in your area, then certainly, for example, work done as part of the South Scotland Enterprise and partnership in such is there. But as Graham says, some of the things that have been positively received and possibly winners indeed in the past are quite small projects, and again the context of it, what is a small project can meet quite a big problem, and that problem in rural areas may be different from those in city areas with large numbers of employers round about, but certainly we will not be conducting an exercise where we're simply counting the numbers as to how many students, people, engagements or whatever come about. So the impact is judged against the available scale of the issue, if that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments, Greg, Lisa?
I've got another one actually.
Oh, certainly.
I said I was putting. I've got a nomination from a member of staff. I mean, you haven't got to discuss this particular one about, but it does sort of connect to what you said earlier. But a member of staff who's been working at the college for years, and she's always been so enthusiastic, and she's got like a trail of different things she's done over the years, all voluntary, all these committees she's been on, learning and teaching, Let's Talk Teaching, all these things. And so her line manager said, well, I think I could have potentially put her in for an award. And I'm saying, yes, that's fine, but these things are things she's been doing over several years. She must be nearing retirement, and she must be sort of, 10 years, 5 years off retirement. She's been working for 20 years. Nobody's ever acknowledged her, and we thought we'd sort of see what, but it's not that she's done anything really spectacular. It's just that her impact as a person has infiltrated so many students, so many members of staff, and it's difficult to kind of say, right, well, she won that award for doing that. It's actually just her and the impact. That's quite difficult to try to get that on paper.
Very understandably, and I would start off by saying that those personal nominations stand out a bit different in terms of the annual nature of them as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We're looking at an accumulation of impact in the sector over time in terms of that. And again, I think it's probably just a case of, well, someone's going to have to think about, well, on the cumulative effect, what is are the top things? But as well, we're looking for the breadth of impact as well. But still, obviously, we're not simply looking for one thing that's been done. We're not talking about looking for the person who happens in a college to have won a Nobel Prize for one discovery in a year, but rather the work in probably in many different ways across many different projects. But again, possibly some focus on, well, what difference has it made, and I'm sure that will be the focus indeed. Graham, would you add to that in any way?
I would, yeah. And you're right. There's a challenge sometimes in pulling these ones out, but the legacy and the impact again could be, what they've done over those years is greater than a specific interventions over the last year. So it should be able to stand up against them. But it's just what's that impact again of they've been able to make with their colleagues, the learners, the community.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I actually just saw in that college colleague of the year category that maybe stands out to me is that I've seen some before whereby an individual's done a huge amount of good in the community,
Mm,
and that's been
yeah.
the focus of what this nomination is, as opposed to what they've done in the college environment.
Yeah.
The community stuff's great, but I think the college environment is absolutely key to it. So maybe just I've seen a few in the past that have maybe not progressed because of that reason.
Because they've cited so much community work rather than the college work, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a balance almost, you know, and there's really, it's good to be doing both, but as a college colleague of the year rather than just a individual year.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And good point, Graham. And of course, there can be links between the two, but taken from the point of view of the fact that this is a college awards scheme.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any further questions or comments?
Just one from me, guys, if that's okay. So we have kind of moved along with the times, if you like, and press releases for us are becoming less regular, and now we're trying to have video, like news bulletins. And are they acceptable as supporting evidence rather than, you know, we used to send news releases from the local paper off the college website? Would you find that, like, college made videos showcasing events or particular things, are they acceptable as supporting evidence?
So in general, yes, is the point. What I will point out, though, is that don't leave us searching through an awful lot of video for the impact evidence. That's by all means point us to parts of a video, tell us where it is, or back it up with figures or whatever it may be. But it's very useful to be able to visualize in many terms. And so, yes, the judges will look at video evidence as part of it. But again, you can imagine if every nomination was sending us like 2 hours of video, we'd have a bit of a problem on our hands. So think what really encapsulates the project and the impact of the project as supporting evidence and make our life a bit easier. But yes, by all means, whatever it may be, supporting evidence in any form. Like if we're beholden to writing, then something's wrong in this modern age. You're right. Graham, any comments?
Yeah, only one thing to add to that, I would say, if you're using those kind of videos as well, it'd be useful to know if you have used it externally or you've used it for other purposes, you know, so as opposed to specifically just for the awards. But it'd be, if it's been used elsewhere, I think that will help as well.
Yeah. Good question, Greg. Thank
you. Thank you.
Anything further? Well, you know that you can still get in touch with CDN, indeed, with any further questions that come up in the process. I think with that, well, I wish you well in the awards. And as I say, it's been a privilege to read about all the great things going on across Scottish colleges over all these years. And I look forward to hearing from you about the great things going on at your colleges too. Unless there's anything further.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.